Lineman beefing already?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs winded down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm John Williams. He's Jay Smith. The Oklahoma Sooners started fall camp and started meeting with the media on Thursday. And one of the more intriguing conversations came from two new arrivals, Branson, Hickman, Damonic, Williams, who confirmed that during their times with TCU and SMU, a little crosstown clash created a little bit of heat between the two guys. Obviously, a center and a nose tackle had opportunities to play against each other each of the last couple of years. And apparently they did not like each other, Jay.
Yeah, it was funny hearing Damonic kind of talk about it. They mentioned Branson. Hickman asked the question about him. He was like, "Oh yeah, we hated each other, right? But I'm really glad that we're on the same team." And that tells you a lot about just their battles, as you mentioned, the nose tackle versus the center, how they duked it out when TCU and SMU played each other. I actually went back and watched a lot of that game. That was kind of how I was trying to, get to know both of those prospects. And man, both of them were really getting it. I'll say this. I think Hickman had a couple of edges there, which is why I think Damonic had to let everybody know they hate each other. But it's good to see that they had that beef. They battled each other like in an actual competitive way, because now in the practice, that can translate, right? That can translate to them both kind of teaching each other things to look for and what other opposing players will try to do to, counter them. And that ain't going to do nothing but help. Like I said, iron sharpen iron. And I love the idea that those two are now together and battling it out, for us.
It's like one of those classic NBA rivalries, like a Jordan versus Magic or Jordan versus Bird, or Jordan versus Isaiah Thomas, Magic versus Bird. Just the mutual respect that you have. Now, TCU SMU is not going to be considered one of the classic college football rivalries, but for people that grow up in the Metroplex, it has heat. And for a guy like Branson Hickman, who we'll discuss a little bit later, grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, it's a game that has a little bit of heat to it. So, seeing that those two were able to go and have those battles and have that mutual respect for one another, I think it, one, not only shows the competitive nature of the two players, but also I think, to me, it highlights, okay, Branson Hickman is a dude. Now, we've been saying it for some time, but if a guy like Damonic Williams comes out and says, we hated each other, that's because he couldn't get the best of him all the time. Like, that's what, like, as a competitor, if you hate somebody, it's because you can't beat them every single time, that they're getting your number sometimes. And I think that's kind of fun. And knowing that they're going to continue to develop this fall in fall camp, that's going to help, again, like you said, the iron sharpen iron, but I think it's going to translate to the rest of the offensive line too. As you got some young guys that are stepping up and taking spots, you've got a dude like Branson Hickman, who's gone to battle against one of the better, interior defensive linemen in college football over the last couple of years.
Exactly. You want to hear that both of them had some wins. So that means that because they couldn't get over the other guy every single time, that means that there's talent on both sides of the ball, which that's the piece that had jumped out to me with that. It's, as you just said, Damonic couldn't beat him all the time. And so, of course, it's annoying. It's like the fly that the gnat that keeps coming around the food that won't go away. It's like, I want to kill you, but I can't catch you. And so, the gnat kind of gets you every once in a while. And eventually, you find it on some food and you get rid of it. But at the same time, those two do, like I said, duking it out. It's going to be fun with the iron sharpens iron. And Damonic talked also about, coming to Oklahoma and what made him choose him, right? He talked about how his mom basically said that on the first visit, before he did all his other visits, mom's like, look, we either both come in here or I'm coming here. You just make the choice. We can go from there. And so it seemed like, Coach Bates made a great impression with them, which we've heard, right? That's kind of the tradition when it comes to hearing about Bates and how he makes impressions on the family. They really love the feel of it. And then Domonic really dove in. And this, John, this sounds like something I think we've all heard a lot, that Venables is pretty detailed with everything he does. And then Schmitty makes him run a lot. Like, I wonder if the first run is the one that got Domonic to be like, I don't know about this decision, or if he just truly embraced it.
That'd be a curious question. You know, he even talked about kind of being surprised that he was out of purple, you know, that it sounded like he didn't ever really want to leave TCU, but took an opportunity to take advantage of the buzz surrounding his name after a couple of years of really, really good play with the Horned Frogs, and took advantage of the transfer portal and the NIL game and got an opportunity to make a move. And listen, that is part of the game. It sucks for TCU, but it's Oklahoma's gain. And whatever transpires over this next season, Oklahoma is going to be better for it, because it's a guy that, I mean, he's got a lot to play for, not just as a teammate for the Oklahoma Sooners, but he's hoping to establish himself as one of the better interior defensive line prospects in either the 2025 NFL draft or beyond in the 2026 NFL draft. So it's intriguing to see him speak so honestly about, you know, leaving TCU and the time that he had there and with Sonny Dykes and that staff. Like, it's kind of intriguing to hear that. TCU's kind of been a program that's been on a steady upward trajectory. Obviously, they made the playoff a couple years ago. I don't know. I just found that part was fascinating. And yeah, the conditioning part, I'm sure it's going to be different. You can not find a past or present Oklahoma Sooner that doesn't have something to say about Jerry Schmidt's strength and conditioning program.
Yeah, Schmidt kicks everybody's butt. But the thing he did praise on that is that he feels like he got faster. He's like, I feel like I'm faster. I got a better first step because of the conditioning and training under Schmidt. And so that should translate on the field. And so Sooner Nation, y'all should be excited about this dude. He's going to be a game changer. Also, he gave a shout out to y'all as fans, right? You know, he talked about TCU, how they didn't have very many like sellout games, which is kind of interesting, right? I know the fan base there is quite passionate, but he said that we didn't have a lot of sellouts, and just about every game here at Oklahoma sold out. He's like, yeah, that's pretty cool to be able to play in that many fans, right? I think TCU's like 45,000-ish, maybe. So going up into the 80s, you know, almost doubling that number. On a good day, get closer to 90 if they really start stuffing people in there. Yeah, it's going to be an experience, and that's something that I know that he really is going to embrace and is pretty excited to see. So, and yeah, Dejon Terry is the dude.
Yeah, and when he was with the media, he even expressed how there was a fan that was kind of chirping in his ear during the Sooners win in Norman this past fall, and that also guys like Grayson Halton and Ashton Sanders were, you know, encouraging him to make the move or to consider making a move as well. So he had a lot of people kind of in his ear and trying to encourage him to come to Oklahoma. It was a multifaceted approach, but you can't sleep on the moms, man. We've seen it in years past, whether it's an Anthony Evans flipping from Oklahoma to Georgia, like the moms are going to win. They say girlfriends are undefeated, but really it's moms are undefeated.
Yeah. I'll say girlfriends are undefeated. I've noticed that with moms that there are exceptions to the rules.
True. True.
We've lucked out with Damonic. I mean, honestly, if you think about it, rumor has it that Stone's mom really wanted to go to be in Miami, and because of, you know, just other things around just the state with family and everything, she kind of wanted him to be further away. But yeah, I'm happy that this was the exception, because we've run into situations where moms like, who was that? Peyton Bowen's mom that wanted him to go to Notre Dame. She was all in on that. And so, yeah, like I said, I can throw examples out, but yes, you're right. Girlfriends definitely are undefeated.
Lamont Rogers' mom didn't seem too keen on him going to Mizzou.
As you start thinking about it, there's a lot
of
you're
right.
Combinations. There's a lot of combinations that moms don't seem like they mean much when it comes to the final selection. Like, right, what they want, it's always the kid goes the opposite, and we got to do better, guys. When mom wants Oklahoma, you follow mom.
Yeah, listen to your mom.
Oklahoma.
Listen to your mom.
Everywhere else, yeah, don't follow mom. But if she
That's
says
right.
Oklahoma, you pick Oklahoma.
That's right. She's just trying to take care of her babies.
Right.
Jackson Arnold was also big on the recruiting trail this offseason, not only for the high school ranks, but in the transfer portal. We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jackson Arnold also had a big hand in bringing one Branson Hickman to Oklahoma, meeting with the media. He mentioned how he knew of Jackson Arnold growing up in the DFW area. He was aware of what Jackson Arnold was doing with Denton Geyer. And when Branson Hickman was in the portal and was considering where to go, Jackson Arnold was a big voice in that.
Yeah, as you can see, the quarterback has stepped up as a leader. I love the propaganda that was put out from practice as well, showing Jackson leading the Sooner Jacks. And yeah, you're starting to see that he's starting to come in his own, right? He's vocal enough. He's persuasive. And as Branson Hickman mentioned, that was one thing that was key to him coming, right? He watched him play. He sees the talent, and he wants to play for a really good quarterback. Boom. Sold him right there on the spot. And so adding that with Bill Bedenbaugh's record and what he's done, his track record of getting offensive linemen to the league, his track record of getting guys drafted high, his track record of his guys getting paid, Hickman understood the assignment and said, nah, I want to play with this guy. So I'm loving the fact that, I mean, the togetherness that we're seeing with this team, everybody's really praising each other and is excited about each other. Man, all they got to do is go out there and execute. It's going to be a special season.
Yeah, Jackson Arnold, he's always kind of shown that he's got that capability, but was humble enough and willing to take a back seat as a true freshman to Dillon Gabriel, and even talked all offseason about the things that he learned from Gabriel as he sat and watched him lead and go about his business as an experienced college quarterback. And so it's just now Jackson Arnold's time to go and take the reins and do just that. And it's encouraging that Jackson Arnold has a reputation even before he kind of takes over as a starting quarterback, because he's only started one game. And we saw what that game was, both the good 380 passing yards and the bad 4 turnovers. But there was a lot of good. And for a guy like Branson Hickman, you combine wanting to go and compete at the highest level with a guy like Jackson Arnold, who he called a great quarterback. You want to go play for a great quarterback that gives you a chance to win. And then combine that with a guy like Bill Bedenbaugh, who, I mean, he helped create the best center in the NFL in Creed Humphrey, a guy that was a 3-star prospect coming out of high school, is now the best center in the NFL. A lot of that, Creed Humphrey's work, Creed Humphrey's diligence, Bill Bedenbaugh's tutelage. So if you're an offensive lineman and you're looking for examples of success, look no further than Creed Humphrey and Bill Bedenbaugh, a guy, again, that was underrated coming to Oklahoma and then left the game as arguably one of the greatest college football centers of all time and is now easily the best NFL center of all time.
Exactly. So Hickman understood the assignment. He saw where he needed to go. Boom. Here he is here at Oklahoma. But he also talked about some of the other players, too, on the roster. And there was one lineman that jumped out to him. And when he said it, I was like, okay, we all saw. We knew that he was going to say that. And it was it's EPL, Eddie Pierre Lewis, right? He's rocking around with his, as they call him, the hater blockers. We've seen the pictures and videos of him rocking them. But, seeing him without them, dude looks mean, fast, strong, and Branson really praised him as a freshman. He's like, he's the one that stuck out to me day one. And I think it's impressive the fact that he, we can tell that he's lost a whole bunch of weight, but he's still nice and stocky, that, he got Hickman's attention, right? Because Hickman comes in, he was one of the higher graded players, on PFF, as far as the transfers coming in. He was actually a highest graded guy coming in this season, and he's also considered a top-rated dude in the SEC. And so now all we got to do is watch him execute. And I'm glad he's on our side. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, just another guy that you look at the depth of the offensive line, and it goes beyond just the guys that we project to be starters. I don't think anybody projected Caden Green to take a starting role last year. Well, by midseason, he had one, and he didn't give it up the rest of the way. Here's hoping that's not the case, that who you roll out as your starting five week one is your starting five throughout the season. You have that continuity. But if there's a true freshman coming into this season that has a chance to break into the starting lineup in 2024, how would you put any money against anybody other than EPL? Good college size already, great athleticism, great strength, physicality. Dude looks fierce. He's the dude. If you're going to put money on any true freshman to break into the starting alignment, especially on offensive line, it'd be EPL.
Yeah, no, you're right. He's probably the one you would pick, mainly because, like I say, he comes in with the sides. It's either him or Eugene Brooks, right? I think those two interior guys, they were the higher rated guys in the class, and they're the ones that definitely jumped out for a lot of people. I think Eugene Brooks or BJ Brooks, whichever you want to call him, he's trimmed down as well, but not as much as what EPL did. EPL also runs track, so he comes in with a lot more agility. So if there's a freshman that would probably play, it's going to be probably one of those two. If you end up on the tackle side, of course, Isaiah Autry's one that's destined to play, especially with the way that Schmitty has beefed him up. Line's going to be big, man. I love the fact that we have an offensive line with everybody over 300 pounds.
Yeah. Like, you're not having to build these guys up over 300 and then get them up to 320. No, you're starting with a really, really nice base, and then you can work to get them up to 320. I hate to keep bringing this dude up, but a Savion Byrd, like, he was walking around at 270, 280, and it took everything in them to keep that weight on him, as opposed to him losing weight. They could never get him up to 300, but he was having to play guard, and that just wasn't working, and it wasn't going to work going into the SEC. I'll be curious to see how it works playing against the ACC, playing against teams like Clemson. I don't know if Clemson's on SMU's schedule or not, but against ACC teams, it's going to be a challenge. But yeah, Oklahoma's already got a better base from which to develop these true freshman offensive linemen. They're not having to put so much effort and work into getting them where they want them to be. So yeah, that's fascinating. I think the other kind of moment, and maybe we'll talk about this next, but just the idea that Peyton Bowen was one of the first out to speak with the media as well. The first media session, you had Damonic Williams, who nobody had heard from, Branson Hickman, who nobody had heard from, Nick Anderson, a guy who is also becoming a leader on this team. We're going to talk about him coming up next. But that Peyton Bowen got an opportunity to be out in front of the media. I think that goes to show just what the coaching staff thinks of him, what the safety room thinks of him, and where he's headed as a player. Let's discuss some of that coming up next, and we'll also get into some of Nick Anderson's comments from the first media session of fall camp coming up on Locked On Sooners. Despite what 1-on-3 analysts might say, that Oklahoma line just hasn't moved. It's been sitting at 7.5, that win total over at FanDuel, for months. If you haven't gotten in on that and you're feeling pretty confident about what Oklahoma's going to do in 2024, you might want to get in now over at FanDuel.com, because I think that line will start to climb as we knock off Tennessee, as they knock off Auburn, as they knock off Texas. That line will move at some point in the season. So now's the time over at FanDuel.com. The sports have stopped sporting like we want them to. We got the Olympics going on, but we don't have a lot of professional playoffs going on. So now's the time to get in on some of those futures bets, whether it's the over-under win total, whether it's the Heisman race, the college football playoff. Get in over at FanDuel.com. Again, where the sports keep sporting. FanDuel's got a boost or a bonus daily for everyone all summer long. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long for all customers over at FanDuel. So head over to FanDuel.com to start making the most of your summer. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. So Nick Anderson spoke with the media on Thursday as well, and he talked about how in each of his 3 summers with the Oklahoma Sooners that this is the toughest that it has been in the strength and conditioning program. What do you make of that, Jay?
They're leveling up, right? And we talked about this last episode, and that was one thing you were looking for is the toughness, right? What does the toughness look like with this team? What's going to be the mentality? And the fact that Nick said this was one of the tougher ones, because he's been here the entire Brent Venables era. So he's seen each year with Schmitty, and all it tells me is they're leveling up. Their whole goal is to go out there and win, shock the world, and be successful. I love that all the skills guys are just like, yeah, this was a tough one, and we want more. Like, I heard I saw the videos of Schmitty just cheering them on while they're going through warm-ups and stuff. He looks happy. Like, I didn't think you could make Schmitty happy, right? It doesn't seem like it. And I was listening to Gabe and Teddy kind of talk about it. They're both just like, I mean, they were a little gloomy at first, a little dooming at first, but now they're just like, I don't know why, but it seems like things are coming together, man. John, we've been saying it for months. But it really does feel like it's going to come to fruition.
I mean, I think that bringing back guys like Stutzman and Bowman to really set the tone for this entire team, I think we're still kind of underrating that. Because, yes, you lost leadership in Dylan Gabriel and Tyler Guyton. You lost a lot on your offensive line, Walter Rouse, McCade Mattire, but you brought back the heart and soul of your team from last year in Danny Stutzman, the guy that went out of action led to Oklahoma's losses. Yeah, you brought back Billy Bowman, the surprisiest breakout player with all the big plays, the 6 interceptions and 3 touchdowns. Those 2 dudes are setting the tone for this program. Defensive guys are setting the tone for the program now. How much fun is that? And that is going to help bring everybody up, bring everybody to a higher level of toughness and physicality and intensity and playmaking. And when you got the defensive guys that are setting the tone and it's not the offensive dudes, I think it kind of bodes well for what Brent Venables is trying to build here.
Look, we've talked about it. I keep saying it over and over. I mean, it's the defense is going to be that tone setter, and it feels like it's setting the tone of being successful. So as long as they execute on everything they're saying, as long as the what they see in the practices are what they're doing in game, there's no reason why this defense doesn't end up at the top. It's funny because, I was, being online, of course, I was looking through how Venables performed at Clemson. And the one thing that jumped out, right, at the end of the season, SP Plus rankings for Oklahoma, defensively, we were sitting at 33rd with an 13th overall for the team. And last season, the season before in the first year, we was number 70 in defense. So going from 70 to 33 on ESPN's SP Plus, pretty huge jump. That's right there in line, similar as far as jumps go, of what Venables did at Clemson. Because when he got to Clemson, they started at 58th, went to 18th. Then the third season, number 1 defense, number 4 defense, number 7 defense, number 1 defense, number 2 defense, number 1 defense, number 2, number 4. Consistently staying within that top 10. When is the last time we talked about Oklahoma have a top 10 defense? It was early 2000s when Venables was here. So if he keeps that going, and then Allie's going to be able to mix it up. I cannot wait to the first game. And the fun part about all of this, it really jumps out, John. How many different defenses do you think we're going to see in the first 4 games of the season?
A lot, because you've got so many guys that you want to get on the field. So you're going to throw out a lot of different combinations. You're going to run nickel with 4 down linemen. You're going to run nickel with 3 down linemen. You might even see some 2 down linemen stuff where you've got Deshaun McCullough and Kendall Dolt. You got both your cheetahs out there at the same time. I mean, There's going to be some weird stuff. You're going to see 3 safety looks. It wouldn't surprise me. You see some quasi 4 safety looks with one of those guys playing cheetah. I mean, it's going to be really fascinating because they're going to be able to experiment a little bit, especially against Temple, a little bit less so maybe against Houston and Tulane, but they'll be able to experiment with some things and really see, okay, can we run some of these like former, like those old Baltimore Ravens fronts where it's like 1 nose tackle and then like 6 linebackers and you don't know who's going to blitz and who's going to drop. Well, they've got the dudes that you can run something similar to that. You can throw Damonic Williams in there at the nose, and then you can have Danny Stutzman and Jaron Kanik and Kip Lewis and Kobe McKenzie and Lewis Carter and Deshaun McCullough all on the field at the same time and dare the quarterback to try and figure out who's gonna rush and who's gonna drop. So it's gonna be fascinating. I think you could see a number of different defensive combinations out there.
Yeah, once we start breaking down the defensive positions and stuff, and the idea, like for me, the thought process is, why show all your cards before your first SEC game? Honestly, why show all your cards before your first SEC road game, right? But that's the good thing is, and listening to Gabe and Teddy talk about it, the one thing that, they kind of pointed out was that both Venables and Allie have been very coy about answering the question of what the defense is going to look like. So we don't know if it's going to be Allie's 3 safety high, if it's going to be more Venables 3-3-5, 4-2-5. No clue. And I love that. I love the mystery behind that because there's no reason to even show your hand to the competition because they're still going to have to figure it out. They're going to figure out what Seth Luttrell's going to do, just like we are. They're going to have to try to figure out what Venables and Allie have up their sleeve going into the game. And then even the best part, with Gabe and him talking about how when you hear Zach Allie and you watch him move, the mannerisms, he's a BV clone. So everybody says it. And it's like, it's the joke of it is, yeah, everybody keeps saying it, but is it real? But then when they see it, they're like, oh, no. They're not lying. So I love seeing that both Peyton Bowen as well as Nick Anderson, though, have taken, it feels like a leadership role on both. Billy Bowman mentioned that the minute that Peyton Bowen really steps up and becomes a leader, man, he's going to be unstoppable. I love that that's what we're seeing now. We're getting that leadership that we've been hoping for from him as a 5-star coming in here and being probably one of the most talented dudes in the secondary. He's going to have a hell of a year. So it sounds like it's going to be him and Bowman up there at the top, starting up.
How many games do you think it takes Peyton Bowen to get his first collegiate interception? Because he was close several times last year.
He was close. Didn't get one. He got a sack, but he got a sack. It was at UCF and some block punts, right?
Yeah.
Man, I think he gets it against Temple. I'm going to say Temple is the game that he gets it. Y'all tell me in the comments what y'all think. I think Temple is when he does it.
We'll come back and we'll circle back to that when the Temple week comes. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Also, go check out the Locked On Sooners Insider Program. You can join by texting SEC 2024 to 405-817-6711. You'll get 14 free days plus 25% off your first month. Again, 405-817-6711. Text SEC 2024. You can interact with us directly. We got guys that are just hitting me up constantly. We're just talking football, talking fall camp. It's a lot of fun. Jay's responding to thosquestions. We'll respond to your questions here on Locked On Sooners. Again, go join the Insider Program, 405-817-6711 by texting SEC 2024 to get 25% off your first month. Follow Locked On Sooners on all the socials at Locked On Sooners. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. Follow Jay on X, Twitter at Unfair Sports, myself at John 9 Williams. But until next time, we'll have more fall camp stuff to talk about all August long as we get ready for Temple. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. Boomer
Sooner.